some, but there's vast elements of who he is you will miss. I mean, just from Chad in our life, the fullness of revelation that comes from sitting there and just having hearts knit together as two people point at the person of Jesus. I remember walking out of his office thinking, this is how you plant a church. Like, just get more people in this conversation. At least let them sit there and listen, right? Because we would sit there for 2, sometimes 3 hours, and he would just infamously just say, go. I walk in, sit down, go. I'm like, oh, okay. But there was such a flow of all that God was saying, and then he would respond, and I would respond, and it was that was a real glory portal back then. And it took me to a place I had never known. Number one, what it was to have hearts knit together, looking at the person of Jesus and the way that began to change me. Yes. And then just wanting to share that. And then these guys were in a prayer meeting that we started because I got to share this with somebody. We got to begin to pray this stuff forward, right? And so I would just kind of walk in, okay, this is what God is sharing this week. And it would come out of these places. There are places we can't get apart from the dynamic of this group. C.S. Lewis has that great article where he talks about the death of a friend. And he talks about when his friend died, not only did his friend die, but he lost something in the death of the friend that he was surprised by, which was that friend gave him an angle on his other friends so that he knew them in a very specific kind of way through that friend and through that friend's insight, right? So even with my kids, I know my kids, but I know them better because of Katie, my wife. She sees things I don't. And together we know our kids better than I would know them apart from her.
Yes, yes.
The same thing applies with the person who is Jesus. I can say I know Jesus better because of Chad. But what we all ought to be able to say is we know Jesus better because of one another. Yes. Because our hearts are being knit together in love so that God, in that environment, this is how he's chosen to do that, can reveal in that spirit of wisdom and revelation that awakening to the person of his Son that begins to release in us all that we actually want to do in terms of his kingdom. So there's a flow here. We need hearts to be encouraged, having been knit together in love, because there are places we're going to reach in the wisdom and the knowledge and the understanding of the person of Christ so that we can excel in the purposes of God, in mission, and all these other things that are bound up in the person of Jesus. And because of that, that's why Paul is so ambitious about him we proclaim.
Yes.
It's not like Paul can't think about anything beyond Jesus. He knows about all the issues and all the things going on in his day, but he knows there's actually no other path forward to actually bringing change and fruitful effectiveness in all of this other than through the person of Jesus.
Right.
It's all got to go through him. So we keep playing one note in some respects. Like we're a one-note church. We, eyes on Jesus, eyes on Jesus, eyes on Jesus. But kind of thinking through where I want to go with this. One of those things where I have all the points, and I think I just kind of want to wrap it here. I wanted to give Chad, I told him I wanted to give him a chance to chime in on this. In many respects, this journey in my life, God used, our story began, I think it's 12 or 13 years ago now. Me going to a men's retreat, Chad spoke, me going home to Long Beach, me driving 3 hours, spending 3 hours with Chad, driving 3 hours home. Because I met a man who I felt like this guy had his finger on Jesus. We were from different sides of the track. we were two things together. I mean, really, it's like theologically, we were just on polar ends of a lot of different things. But number one, it's been interesting as we've focused on him, how like-minded, number one, we've become. We actually would say that we're like of the same tribe as we've focused on him, how it's pulled us together. So bringing this message to this church is so crucial, so relevant. Number one, because it's relevant for all God's people, but this is like the headwaters of where all this kind of started in my life, if you will. And like I said, this is the thing that God is doing right now with me as we are back at home. Thinking through we have so many issues. We've added a lot of people, and there's such a tendency to get eyes off of Jesus. And you quickly realize that everything begins